Welcome everyone to the special edition of Telemedia in 10. We're going to whistle stop you through the world of Telemedia 8.1 this morning. For those of you who don't know, Telemedia8.1.com is our brand new 24/7 contact and information exchange platform. If you haven't been to the site yet, register for free to network with everybody in our Telemedia ecosystem. But more importantly, you will be able to search and access snackable, on the money conference content, which has been pre-recorded. It's on demand. And Paul and I are going to take you through some of the highlights that we picked out this week. Do be aware that on a weekly basis, of course, we are adding new content all the time. So this is not the definitive list. It is just a mere sample.
So,
there, isn't there?
Oh, excellent. Yes. And as you say, this is merely a taster of some of the things that have stood out for me. What have you found interesting?
Well, I would like to draw everyone's attention to the first recording that we did, which is building our IPRM business by Quack CEO Joseph. It's really good. And I think, I know Joseph did a presentation similar to this at the Carrier Billing Summit, I think, last year. And it's basically extolling the virtues of IPRM, which has had, I suppose, all sorts of good press, bad press, more bad press than good press. And I think that, as with a lot of mobile billing technologies, I think we've come into a new era where, a lot of the bad players in the market have sort of, I think, gone underground or disappeared a little bit. And we're now looking towards far more mainstream applications and a much brighter future. And Joseph really highlights IPRN and the future of IPRN as being a really interesting market, and a market that can really do some good in some corners of the earth that really need it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've spoken to Joseph many times over the years about IPRN, and he's always been a very strong advocate of making it sort of something that is, a useful tool to democratize content for people everywhere. Because interestingly, during the sort of lockdown coronavirus pandemic, people all over the world, it doesn't matter where they are turning to mobile, particularly for entertainment and information, and playing more games, and a lot of those involve needing to be monetized. And IPRN is becoming, in sort of developing markets particularly, though not exclusively, a key way of doing that. And it's suddenly put it into the sort of mainstream sort of market. People, just because they live in India in a small village, doesn't mean they're not going to want to stream Netflix or buy stuff in games. And IPRN is one of the sort of billing tools that's there to make this happen, and it's really taken off in the past sort of 6-8 months during the pandemic, and I think it's going to continue to do so. Which and Joseph talks very eloquently about why that is and how to make it happen, where it's happening, and what some of the sort of upsides of it are. So it's really interesting. I think it's also the angle that it's shaking out the industry a bit. There's quite a lot of consolidation occurring and new players appearing. We've talked before, I think a couple of weeks ago, about audiotext.com, who are new to the market and have come in with a sort of a developer friendly platform, and their whole mindset is that this is for everybody. This isn't some sort of 20-year-old sort of niche sort of weird bit of telecoms technology. This is a really vital tool that could be used. So an excellent and really interesting presentation.
Yeah, well, I would agree. And I think one of the things we've touched on before, again, is this sort of fragmentation of the media market, and how, and I think audiotext.com mentioned this, in that, whereas before you'd have had, a couple of television stations per country, but, that media landscape has been completely blown open to, to almost any content provider or, YouTuber. And this mechanism offers them a really tangible way of being able to monetize their content. And I think, just looking at some of the applications at YouTube channels, radio stations, website, he identifies that, as did audiotext.com, as being, prime territory for IPRM applications. One of the other things I think was really interesting that came up over the last couple of weeks is a reminder that an awful lot of Apple iPhones reconditioned phones are working their way into those emerging markets. So perhaps even 3 or 4 years ago, you might have been saying, well, you know, their feature phones, it's only really going to be SMS, which obviously had a part to play in those markets. Now, you're going to, you know, we're just seeing a higher and higher and higher penetration of smartphones in what would have been traditionally, you know, emerging SMS markets. And of course, you know, they have got internet access or access to, you know, rich content on those sorts of phones, whereby they are being given a whole range of applications which are billable, you know, worthy of billing, and which are serving up content that they want to pay for. And so IPRN is absolutely perfect for that. And, you know, from our point of view, I think, you know, Telemedia has always given well, you know, and it's the home of IPRN, really, isn't it? And I think that, you know, rather than seeing that market sort of diminishing and being overshadowed by DCB, I think that it seems to be, as you rightly say, really interesting and coming to the fore. And in fact, there's something else for us to look out for, because I know that talking to dynamic mobile billing and talking to people like John Barros, who are very keen on sort of promoting telecoms for good. In some of those markets, you know, there's a need for charitable donations. And of course, that's another area where I think that the IPRN community would really and are really going to play a big part in being able to get funds to or raise funds for markets that, you know, and areas that really need some help. So good for Quack, and I thought a really nice way to kick off. And I would you know, just say to all of the IPRM market, we know we're very keen to hear some good news stories, and we're very keen to get more of this kind of content on the 8.1 platform. So do get in touch. Right, moving on. Paul, you picked out another sort of one of our originals, which was all around M gaming and DCB in that particular sector. So what were your thoughts on that?
Yes, well, absolutely. I mean, this is, you know, obviously sort of vested interest and seeking to glorify my own views and opinions. This was a webinar that we ran ourselves, didn't we, that we've also added to 8.1 now, which is about mobile gambling and carrier billing. You know, trod story, sort of really more people using gambling services during the lockdown and subsequent sort of restrictions. Needing to get newbies on board. Carrier billing is increasingly becoming an excellent tool for doing that. And we did an excellent white paper on it back in April, May time, which I think is still available for download. And we also then recorded a webinar off the back of that, where I discussed with Beza from Democo and Joe from Melody Media the whole sort of shift in mobile gambling and mobile sort of games that have a gambling element, and how to onboard people using carrier billing, and, you know, what the upsides are and what some of the shortcomings are. And it's yeah, I don't want to sort of dwell too much on it because we've covered this many times, but it's an excellent webinar that's up there that if you really want to get a view of carrier billing and the mobile gambling industry, it provides a really good snapshot of that.
I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the benefits of 8.1 is that we can really outreach to verticals with some very specific propositions. In other words, for example, you know, this would be the platform to go and find out very succinctly what it is you need to know about DCB, why you should be employing or why you should be adding more mobile elements to your strategy. I mean, just some of the headline stats from that white paper: 70% of first-time users convert with carrier billing, 70% of users under 40 would use mobile payments if available. I mean, the proposition to any gambling operator is pretty compelling. But I think that the conclusion was that there was a really potentially huge percentage of untapped revenue that's being left on the table because they're not fully embracing and fully mobilizing their business, despite the fact that they have invested quite heavily on giving the user experience or invested heavily on making sure that the user experience on mobile is really, really good. And yet, you know, perhaps that's not the full picture, and that you need to dig a lot deeper to have a proper mobile strategy. It's not just about what the user sees on the phone, it's what's going on in the background. And I think that's what our industry will really help the gaming industry when they come together as a partnership, because I think it's that billing and engagement side of things which is really the final piece of the puzzle. It's always a joy to see you. Thank you very much for your time.
You too, mate. You too.
I'll see you again next time.